Entitled sister takes her fake pregnancy more seriously than my real one. My sister's been pretending to be pregnant ever since I agreed to act as a surrogate for her child. It's been a very emotional time for her, but being pregnant hasn't exactly been easy on me. I've been patient with her, but she finally crossed the line when she tried to keep me from sitting down and resting because she felt like she needed the rest more than a pregnant woman. I finally lost it and put her in her place. It went over even worse than I expected. I'm pregnant with my sister's child. My sister has some fertility issues and is not able to have a safe pregnancy. I offered to carry the baby for her and her husband. I'm now currently 6.5 months along, and everything is going well. Once we found out I was pregnant, my sister made the decision to live like she herself is the pregnant one. I found it odd, but I didn't see an issue with it. I understood that she's going through an emotional time. I mainly thought this was going to be something just between her and her husband. I was wrong, and she's begun to act pregnant in her daily life. At first it was just small things, like having her husband run out to get food she was craving. But it developed into things like wearing maternity wear. She also gets annoyed if I talk about my cravings or pregnancy symptoms around her. These things don't bother me much, and I just think my sister wants to feel involved. Today, my sister wanted to go shopping to look at baby things, since the stores have reopened in our area. The day started with her getting angry whenever sales staff would talk to me. I would explain to the salespeople that my sister is the mother whenever it was needed. After a few stores, we arrived at a baby retailer, where she wanted to make a baby registry. By this point, I was extremely tired and wanted to go home. I had told my sister this, and she promised this would be the last store. I must have looked exhausted because, as we were waiting, the salesperson brought over a chair for me to sit down while the registry paperwork was done. When she brought it over, she did say something like, "Here's a chair for Mom." I didn't correct the salesperson this time and just sat down. After I had sat down, my sister told me to get up and give her the chair. I asked her why and tried explaining that I was tired. My sister berated me by saying the salesperson said the chair was for the mom and that she was supposed to sit. She said that this was her registry appointment, and how dare I act like this was all about me. She said she was the one who was the expectant mother and that she needed to sit down now. I told my sister that, yes, she's going to be the mother, but I'm the one that is currently pregnant. I snapped at her that she is not actually pregnant and does not get how exhausting it can be. I told her I'm trying my best to appease her, but she's being ridiculous. My sister began to cry, saying that I was shaming her for not being able to get pregnant, and that I was making fun of her. I tried to defend myself and tell her that is not what I meant. She wouldn't listen and ran out of the store. Everyone in the store was staring at us. They were looking at me like I was a complete monster after hearing what my sister said. My mother says that I should have just let my sister have the seat. I know this whole thing must seem so small and stupid because it's about a chair. I don't know if I'm the jerk in this situation or not. It does seem pretty weird that they couldn't just grab a second chair for the sister, but that's obviously not what this was really about. Like the original poster said, she wants to be involved. Because of her fertility issues, she basically has to feel like a bystander in the conception of her own child. Whatever shame or insecurity she might have already been dealing with has been amplified by watching OP walk around with her baby growing inside of her. So while OP is definitely not the jerk here, the sister is at least sympathetic. A lot of the comments saw it this way, but some were pretty harsh on her. Some went as far as to say that the sister will never let OP be a part of the child's life because she'll be seen as a competition. That's not impossible, but it seems a bit extreme. She should definitely be more grateful for everything OP is putting her body through to help her out, but hopefully she'll come around when the baby's born, if not sooner. What do you think? Is the sister just dealing with insecurity, or is she really as awful as some people want to believe? Have you ever known of surrogate births where the biological mother went through what the sister's going through? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. My mother kidnapped my son. Am I a jerk for being unhappy about it? I emigrated to my husband's home country 5 years ago, and we have a beautiful son who's 3 years old. My mother has always been controlling, and is frankly a typical narcissist. She was totally against my moving, and was even more upset when I had my son, since due to a combination of her husband being terminally ill and the pandemic, she wasn't able to meet my son until this week. She has complained bitterly about how we cheated her out of her special time with her first grandson. I wasn't exactly excited about her coming to visit us, but my husband convinced me we should try to let our son have a relationship with her. Well, from the moment she arrived, she complained. Our house is too small, the garden is overlooked, and so on. She complained that my son doesn't speak much English, and so she can't communicate with him. She complained that my son didn't want to hug her, and that he wanted to stay with his paternal grandmother. My son spilt a drink, and she shouted at him. We are taking the gentle approach, so I told her not to do that and why. She lost it, telling me I have no idea how to raise a kid. I told her she needs to respect my methods, or she can leave. She stopped, but the whole rest of the day you could tell she was furious. That night, my son was having one of those nights where he just isn't going to sleep through. My poor husband also had an IBS flare-up in the early hours, and we realized he had no medication. When my son settled at around 7:30 a.m., I decided to do a quick run to the 24-hour pharmacy to get some medication, leaving my son and husband both asleep on the sofa. I was gone for 20 minutes, but when I came back, my mother's rental car was gone, and so was my son, while my husband was still asleep. He was as shocked as I was that they had gone. I tried my mother's mobile, but no answer. After 45 minutes of becoming increasingly hysterical, I called the police. They came out very fast, and when I explained as above, took things seriously. 6 hours later, my mother pulled back up and started telling the police that I had told her she could take my son out for the day. I'm currently 6 months pregnant, and she said it must be pregnancy brain, which the police seemed to accept and acted like the matter was closed, since my son was home safely and showing everyone the toys he'd been bought. I told my mother to leave and that I never want to see her again. She started telling family that I kicked her out for no reason and that she can't find a hotel. They blew up my phone, to which I told them she had kidnapped my son, and I'm going to pursue this with the police. Now I'm being called a jerk for saying my son was kidnapped when he was just taken on a day trip by his loving grandmother, and that an accusation like this could affect my mother's job as a nurse. Am I the jerk for telling police and family that my mother kidnapped my son when she took him out for the day without telling myself or my husband? The biggest question bothering some people in the comments on this story is whether OP's mom can really be accused of kidnapping. Most seem to agree that she can, but the question is whether it was bad enough to justify involving the police again now that OP's son has been returned. It doesn't seem like the mother meant any harm. She was entirely wrong to leave without OP knowing, and she was even more wrong to try and use her pregnancy to gaslight her into believing that she had given her mom permission. That's not how pregnancy brain works. But kidnapping, police involvement, potentially getting the mother fired, that's heavy. She could legitimately ruin this woman's life because she took a little boy out and bought him toys. Cutting her out, at least for now, seems more than fair enough, since she clearly doesn't respect or possibly even understand boundaries. Everything beyond that accomplishes pretty much nothing beyond quenching a few commenters' dark thirst for extreme justice. I made a shiny new friend, and now I'm leaving my wife for him. My wife Amy and I have a spare room in our home. We've gone back and forth since we moved in 2 years ago about what we wanted to do with it, but we never took the initiative to actually implement any of these plans. We already have a sufficient number of guest rooms and an office, so the room just sits there unutilized. I'm not that worried about it, but my wife brings it up now and then. These mentions are just about the unused room itself, not anything concrete she actually wants to use it for. I made a new friend, Ben, about 8 months ago, and it was very much one of those we connected from the first time we spoke to each other situations. I've actually never had that many close male friends, so this connection is especially important to me. The conversation flowed so easily. We had loads in common. I didn't think such a huge amount of genuine love and respect for a person could be developed in less than a year, but it's been very cool to experience that and get to know him. One of the things that we bonded over was a similar love for art and music. Ben is way more talented than I am when it comes to painting, but it's something we both enjoy. His birthday's coming up soon, and I thought that, on top of what else I was getting him, I could turn the spare room into an art studio for us both to use. I already ordered a few things for it and was getting ready to jump into painting the walls when my wife came in and demanded to know what I was doing. I explained that I was finally fixing up the spare room. She said it was unacceptable that I had done this without confirming with her that it was okay. But I didn't think I would need to since it's been 2 years, and the room has basically never been touched. Am I the jerk? No question, this guy's the jerk. It doesn't matter that he's never had a close male friend. It doesn't matter that he paints well. All that matters is that OP's wife has been denied a say in what happens to a room within her own house because her husband wanted to give it away as a birthday present to a guy he's known for barely over half a year. By the way, commenters were curious about what else OP was getting Ben for his birthday. Turns out he's buying the guy a pair of Gucci shoes priced at well over $3,000. And if you're wondering what he got his wife for her last birthday, it was a purse worth about $250. Readers felt like this OP was not only cheating on his wife emotionally, but that he was more or less rubbing her face in it. And they were 100% right, because OP later made the following update. Ben and I sat down and talked on Tuesday night about everything. It was overwhelming to say the least. He was gentle and sweet as always, and allowed me the time and space to say everything I needed to. That night was one of the most beautiful of my life. Acceptance, love, and trust are truly so powerful, life-changing. Amy and I had a conversation about the spare room last night. I had been putting it off since my post a few days ago, and was hoping to wait until the weekend to talk about it all, but she insisted. I did as a lot of comments suggested, and used the renovation as a lead-in to talk about the other things going on. I told her that her reaction to it brought up a lot of confusing emotions for me that I've spent the last few days working through, and things continued from there. I had toyed with the idea of couples therapy, and it was something she suggested, but I don't think it's a viable option. I love her, but I've come to realize that I was never in love with her like I once thought. And after getting to really and truly experience that, it wouldn't be fair to either of us if we tried to force something that I'm not capable of giving to her. I'll be splitting my time, staying in one of our guest rooms half the time, and with Ben in his apartment for the rest of the time being, while Amy and I separate and work things out moving forward. Obviously, that means the room renovations have been paused until further notice. I'm really excited for the future. Well, it's nice that you're excited, but you're still the jerk. In fact, this OP is even more of a jerk now than he was before. He doesn't get to pull the bit about loving her but not being in love with her. It wasn't enough that he gave their spare room away without consulting her, but he basically made it sound like her reaction to that is what made him decide he's not in love. Does that mean he thought of himself as a loving husband while he was letting a man she hardly knows have a room they'd been debating about for years? It sounds like he cares a lot about his new romance, but not one bit about how this affects Amy. If that's how OP thinks love works, Ben is in for a pretty rough time. Uptight parents think I shouldn't sniff nitrates at my own wedding. I officially tied the knot last week. Not sure how, but I convinced the coolest guy in the world that I'm tolerable enough to tie down for life. Super shocking. Thankfully, everyone accommodated the fact that we didn't want children present at our ceremony or reception. The thing that did receive some pushback was our request that, unless you were explicitly invited to stay, then everyone needed to be out of the reception venue by 7 p.m. Those who were asked to stay were mostly just friends of me and my husband. As much as I love my parents, siblings, and new in-laws, I did want to partake in a few adult substances, and wasn't really interested in them bearing witness to poppers and other things getting passed around. We had been with them all day, and would be seeing them the next morning, as all of us were staying at a place nearby and had plans to grab breakfast together, so I didn't see it as a problem. At that point, I had already had a few drinks, so after some back and forth about whether they really had to head out, I basically said something to the effect of, "If you wouldn't feel comfortable spending a night out with us at a gay bar, you should probably leave." The space cleared out pretty quickly after that, and we did our thing with our friends. It was a wonderful end to a wonderful night. My dad, however, didn't show up for breakfast the next morning, and my sister tipped me off that my mom and my mother-in-law weren't happy with my comments. Am I the jerk for asking my parents and in-laws to leave our wedding early? Edit. To answer some questions, yes, it was put on the invitations that the reception ended at a certain time. There was no kicking anyone out. The event just ended, and the after-party continued. My friend owns the reception venue we used. Based on his response to commenters, not only is this OP the jerk, but he's either unable or unwilling to see why. It's true that it's his wedding, and he's allowed to celebrate however he wants. Plenty of married couples throw smaller parties after the reception so they can really let loose with some of their friends. Some people think the reason Reddit decided OP was the jerk is because he was doing poppers, and based on his comments, he and all the male guests who stayed for the after party were getting freaky together. None of that matters. What matters is that this OP told people up front that he had split his guest list in two. When an after party follows the reception, it usually takes place in a different venue, so people are less likely to know whether they made the cut. I get that his friend was giving him this venue for free, but he still told his family that he was going to be partying all night and that they could just wait and enjoy his hungover self in the morning. If you're going to send half your guests away, there's a tactful way to do it. Telling them directly that they aren't fit to sit at the cool kids table is not the way. And despite what he says in his edit, that really is what he did, except he took it a step further by hinting at what all these people were going to be doing. People who are into group flings shouldn't feel like they have to be ashamed of it, but that doesn't mean everyone wants to know what's happening between your legs. It's not that hard to keep your private life private. But as I hinted, this was a pretty divided issue on Reddit. Where do you land on it? Is the way he handled this okay, or was more tact needed? Let us know in the comments if he's the jerk or not, and why. Mother-in-law thinks she can hide her pregnancy from my husband. Not today, sister. I recently found out that my husband's mom is pregnant. She didn't tell me directly, and probably wouldn't have wanted me to know, as we don't get along at all. But we were on an outing for a mutual family member's birthday, and I heard her whinging to an usher that they needed to bend the rules and let her back in her seat because she's pregnant, and that's why she got up. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. My husband and I do not keep secrets, and I felt like I had to tell him. But it also felt wrong. The thing is, if I didn't tell him and he ever found out I knew, he would feel so betrayed. I ended up pulling her aside at the end of the night and letting her know that I knew, and that I felt I had to tell him. She told me she wasn't ready, and then told me she had no plans of telling him, maybe even until the baby was born. What the heck? I told her I was going to have to tell him, and she began to cry. She said she knew he would take it badly and feel he was being replaced, since she hasn't talked to him in a while. She also said she's having a lot of weird feelings about not wanting him near the baby, but she thinks it is hormonal and will go away. She said she's even going to therapy to get into a place where she can talk to him again, and to please not tell him. They used to be close, but she hates me with a passion, and it has ruined their relationship. I said I was so sorry, but I just don't keep secrets from my husband. She called me an effing stupid biscuit and ran off crying. I told my husband, and he did not take it well at all. He called her, and there was a massive fight, and now my mother-in-law is telling everyone I'm evil and I betrayed her. The family is pretty split about whether he had the right to know or not. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that his mom is pregnant? So, there are a few things that came out in the comments that you need to know for this one. First of all, the mother-in-law gave birth to OP's husband at 15. She's 36 now, and he's 21. Second, the reason she doesn't get along with OP is because OP has openly insulted and made fun of her in the past. So she's not exactly innocent in the rift between her husband and her mother-in-law. And now she's helped widen that rift even further. The comments were split down the middle on this one, because some people agree that spouses should never keep secrets, right down to the commenters who brag that they can't even give a gift without telling their spouse what it is. Weird flex, but okay. But the thing to remember in this case is that the mother was going to therapy for the sole purpose of getting ready to better things with her son. If they got to that point, this news might have been better received. Yes, he should know he has a sibling, but thanks to OP's fairly deliberate meddling, he's further away than he might have been from actually being a part of that sibling's life. Maybe things would have happened differently, but the point is that OP doesn't know either way. Even if she felt the need to tell him, it didn't have to be right then and there. She could have given the mother more of a chance to come around. The thing she said about waiting until the baby was born was not set in stone. But this is a tough issue involving conflicting moral obligations, so let us know what you think below. We always enjoy hearing your different opinions. Click on one of the videos you see on the screen now, or a Karen will sue you.